blog got out and just on Cablevision, what it cost me in hours and time for the week of April the 24th, 18 3/4 hours and $4.47. And all this one, that one was behind, but it got out at the same time this one got out. And on the week of May the 1st, 1995, my birthday week, I'll tell you what that, Cablevision is up to 8,000 pages. 8,000 pages of bad record. Let me see if I can find the stats. Katie, find the stats. Stock quotes. GCI, that's Gannett, $53. Texaco, $68.38. Cablevision, 20. That's not right. 25 and 3. No, that's wrong. Be more like 53. And CBS, 63. On the week of May 1st, or at least no costs are mentioned, but the time for Cablevision the week of May 1st is 13 1/4 hours. The pages are 8,107, and the next mailing is 139, and that's all for that. I went down to the to watch Bryant to see, it was a return date for Kalaji's opposition, or Kalaji's reply affidavit to dismiss my complaint. And so Bryant didn't seem to, he knew I was there, but I guess I didn't have to do anything. So I went on my way to Manhattan. I was too late to see the appellate term, but I went across the street and saw the appeals clerk, and I got the settlement of minutes notice. I sent $400 in for the minutes, and then I went back to federal court in the United States Courthouse, 40 Foley Square, and I went up to see if there were any oral arguments. They were all over, and they were having this United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, Circuit and Court Awards. So all these people were getting awards, and people were plotting. And then I went up and saw Clerk Frank Perez. Clerk Monica was not in Monday, so I missed seeing her. Here's an article, how clogged the United States courts are. United States District Court down in Foley Square, Manhattan. So, and then Tuesday I went to the Texaco annual meeting, and Wednesday I went to the CBS annual meeting. Oh, and the big news, and of course everything is behind because I hadn't had a chance to stay in and do the papers. But you know what? At 8:12 p.m. Sunday night, Franklin and I did all of the work. We had all the work done. All the work was caught up. The details were like 4 or 5 columns long. There were about 63 of them. All the things that had to be done. But we made it at 8:12 p.m. and we had free time. Versus Cablevision lawsuit 3, Glendora versus Dolan. The United States Supreme Court denied my cert on my petition for writ of certiorari. So I have to write a protest about that. That's not right. That's definitely not right. And That hasn't been done either. I think I have about 20 legal papers to get out. Folks, did you hear about the undertaker who signs all of his letters, eventually yours? And a striker had a picket sign, and it said, "Time heals all wounds," and the striker behind him had another sign and said, "Yes, but time and a half heals them faster." And Jack, wait, no, that's not the one I wanted to tell you. Doug said to his dad, "What causes rain?" And his dad said, "Big high-pressure areas, cold fronts, warm, moist air, and the first day of your vacation." For Glendora versus the Gannett Company Incorporated, Gannett Suburban Newspapers, John Curley, the CEO, Gary Watson, the president of the newspaper division, Douglas McCorkindale, who counts the beans, and Gary Sherlock, who's in charge here in Westchester and who's the one to blame for everything that goes wrong here, and for Kenneth Paulson, his executive editor, so-called. What happened? Well, we're trying to get out this mailing. We just can't have the time to do it. Everything is so backed up. It's mainly about the annual meeting of Gannett, and it's I believe that's it. We haven't heard from Judge Burroughs and Charles Devlin on my motion to enjoin Kalaji from collecting $531 cost from me until he stops robbing me of my costs for the victory over Cablevision in the Judge Silverman court. We haven't heard anything on that. And moving on, we go to Capola 1 and Capola 2. Maybe the appellate division has made a decision by now on both of them, but we don't have time to call up. And Amacone, the White Plains, your taxpayer money that White Plains pays a lawyer named Pagano in Manhattan. His answer has come back. I haven't had a chance to read it or answer it for the New York Court of Appeals, New York State Court of Appeals. And Katie is digging something. What are you making, Katie? You going to read those papers? And on CBS, I went to the CBS annual meeting, and also I have to protest their lawyer's paper to the New York State Court of Appeals. Thank you. And then on Colabella, we haven't heard from Colabella, and Edmund Purvis has not got in his respondent's brief to the appellate division nor to myself. Agency had a contest for a slogan for their soap, and one of the entries was, if you don't use our soap, for Pete's sake, use our perfume. I'm proud to be an American. Why? The last 4 words of American are, I can. And when a comedian received an award for his jokes, he said, I have to thank my 4 writers. And when Robert Schuller received an award for his sermons, he said he had to thank his 4 writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Well, resuming the next morning, which is today, Friday, May the 11th, at 6:24 a.m., we will we'll tell you what happened on Glendora versus James Walsh, Daniel Walsh, Roberta Walsh, Theo Alpucci, Nella Alpucci, Kevin Larkin, Andrew Larkin, and their law-breaking lawyers, Bruce Bendish, Wilson Bave, Conboy Cousin, Koza, Odell, McGrath, Karamitzos, and the law breaking of the Judge Wood Court. The law clerk there is Stephen Carlucci. And this is what happened from May the 4th to today, May the 11th. No, today is May the 12th, excuse me. It took 4 hours to get these wall logs, to file, paginate, do the logs and the mailings for wall for the past 2 weeks because there wasn't any time to keep up with them. That would be for the week of April the 24th and the week of May 1st. And they were taken down and reduced. Now they've got to be, master has to be made of them, then they have to be taken back and printed. Oh no, I think they were printed. Okay, now they have to be folded, stuffed, sealed, and posted. The first week of May are 13 hours of labor and time on wall, law breaking, 2,455 tortious acts, i.e. injuries. The wall bad record is up to 3,000 pages, and it costs $8.86, I guess, for printing and postage. Morning at 3:30 a.m. the furnace was grinding, gear stripping, shrieking, screeching. It woke me up. I never went back to sleep. It continued that way until it broke down finally and wouldn't run at all, and that was around 9 o'clock, 9 a.m. And I called the answering service, and it's such a fight to get those people to do their job. And I called Regent, and that's an even worse fight to get the people to do their job at the Regent answering service. By the time we came back from church, the furnace wasn't running at all, and it was silent. And I believe at 6:40 p.m. that afternoon, somebody from Regent had come and repaired the furnace, and we had had no hot water all that time and no heat. Now that's the 15th time that furnace is broken down. And the infuriating part of it is that we have to pay $28 a month for that furnace. Reportedly, it cost $37,000 to install. This happened before we even moved here. The DHCR gave the landlord permission to charge for the repair of the furnace. It's called a major capital improvement. It's something that the landlord lobby, $1 million landlord lobby, got through the Albany legislature. It is grossly unfair, but it's doubly unfair to have to pay that and then have this furnace break down 15 times. Furnace that is sick and it isn't taken care of by Regent Oil, the noise was devastating. It was frightening. It was really hard to take. And as I say, 4 hours Sunday it took to file, paginate, do the logs, and get the mailing ready to be printed on the Waltz law breaking. Larkin and El Pucci and their lawyers and the courts. You have the same for the week of April the 24th, the last week in May. It cost us 41 3/4 hours. The tortious acts were 2,448. The dollar costs were 0, and the pages on that last week of April got up to 2,800. And now, as you know, they're up to 3,000 pages of bad record. No, it's a reduction, really, of Glendora's motion to Judge Ingracia that this lawsuit cannot be dismissed. No witnesses, no testimony, no jury, no trial. The facts have not been heard. The evidence has not been seen. The videotapes have not been seen. From church, there was voice noise in the courtyard. It was Theo El Pucci throwing a ball to the girls in 2B, 3C, 4D. It was violation of the White Plains Noise Ordinance. Theo Alpucci was not standing on the lawn. He was standing on the walk, the concrete walk, but he was in violation of insulting and abusive language. He said, "Throw the ball at her." It stopped very soon, but those girls continued their campaign to murder the grass and to ruin it for all of the other families at 21 Greenridge Avenue. It cost $20.19 to do the reduction and do some of the printing. Everything is way behind, so I really can't tell you what the $20.19, what part of the printing it was for. But it should have been out on Monday, but there's been no time to fold it, stuff it, seal it, and post it. Behind every successful man is a proud wife and a flabbergasted mother-in-law. Tuesday was the Texaco annual meeting. And Tuesday at 3:30 p.m., James Walsh was clunking down the stairs in roller skates. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? To come into a building in roller skates, that makes a lot of sense. And then to go up something like 15 stairs in roller skates and do the same coming down, and do this about 3 times a day. You really have to be a special kind of an intelligent person to do that. We had to start another volume on the law breaking, Walsh, Alpucci, Larkin, their lawyers in the court. This is volume 24, started May the 1st. As I say, the record is up to 3,000 pages. Then the furnace broke down again. Wednesday at 5 p.m. there was no heat. All day Wednesday and all day Thursday, and it was cold. It was cold. We paid $1,019, maybe $1,018 a month rent. We have to pay $28 for this furnace. I don't think this is right. This is the 16th time now that this furnace is broken down with no hot water, no heat, although we did have hot water Wednesday and Thursday, but no heat, and it was cold. And I had to put my long underwear back on in the house. So this is the DHCR folder, and we are going to complain to the Division of Housing and Community Renewal that it isn't fair for us to have to pay $28 a month for this furnace when it keeps breaking down. And then we have to go through all the abuse of the answering services of John Porzio and of Regent Oil. It is not fair. So we're going to ask the DHCR for something, either to stop paying it anymore or to get the money back that we have paid. Because this furnace broke down before we moved here. Allegedly, it cost $37,000 for the furnace. And I think it's been a bad job from the beginning to have 16 breakdowns. And heat and hot water are part of your warranty of habitability, which is not a written thing, it's a state law, and it's in every lease or every oral agreement between a landlord and tenant. Your warranty of habitability. Clean, safe, heat, hot water, and a few more. This, our having to pay for this furnace is a thing that the landlord lobby, $1 million lobby in Albany, got the state legislature to sign. It is not fair. And it's just more greedy landlordship. As to the Judge Wood decision, no, he signed the order, and it came on, look, you can't read this, can you? Look at this. You can't read that, it's practically illegible. Supreme Court of the State of New York, this is Glendora's protest to signing that order. County of Westchester, Glendora plaintiff against Daniel Walsh, Roberta Walsh, James Walsh, Nella Alpucci, Theo Alpucci, Andrew Larkin, and Kevin Larkin defendants. Glendora protests Judge Wood's order. index number 2048293. 1, you need a new copy machine. This ink is so weak it is illegible. It is as weak as the court has been for 1 year, 5 months, from November the 11th, 1993 to April the 28th, 1995. The least you could do is hand in something legible. This order is nothing but a perfunctory copying of a CPLR form. Is this the best 3 years of law school and X years on the bench can show? Judge Wood could have at least signed Glendora's cross order, but to the whimpering end, he has to be bossed around by the political connection, by the political power, money, and pressure of soulless and unprofessional Wilson Babe, Comboy, Koza, Cousins, Odell, McGrath, and Karamitsos. How can a judge dismiss a complaint when he has not seen the evidence nor heard the evidence, when there has been no witnesses sworn, no testimony, no jury, and no trial? How can a judge rule on the facts when A, he doesn't know them, and B, it is the province of a jury to rule on the facts? This judge has thrown justice to the winds. This judge did not rule on the merits. This is an order that is a public disgrace and will live in the archives forever. Another hollow black robe. Take a look at it. Isn't it something to be proud of? Isn't it something to show your grandchildren and great-grandchildren? Think of the tainted money that is being passed on to the same instead of money earned cleanly, honestly, and honorably. JSC stands for Justice So-Called. This is why it doesn't stand for Justice Supreme Court. This is why 28 of us rallied outside the Appellate Division, 2nd Department, 45 Monroe Place, Brooklyn, on Law Day, May 1st, 1995, Monday, for 2 hours, noon to 2 p.m. Our chants were 1, 2, 3, 4, we won't take it anymore. 5, 6, 7, 8, whom do we investigate? The judges, the bad, bad judges. Glendora videotaped it, and it will be on TV for the next 2 weeks on Channel 14, TCI, White Plains, Thursdays at 5:30 p.m. We took pictures of all of the Cadillacs and Lincolns with license plates JSC, so-and-so, JSC, Justice of the Supreme Court. All of these were illegally parked. One judge sent out his flunky, a New York State court officer, and that's all they are. They're just secretaries to judges. They carry a gun. They're just secretary to judges and errand boys and girls. A New York State court officer to get his Lincoln illegally parked out of the view of the camera. You people are a monopoly. You are in violation of the Sherman Antitrust Law and the Clayton Act. Where else have we to go? Down with the corruption and up with the Bill of Rights, we chanted for 2 hours while wearing our placards back and front and handing out leaflets. It was the First Amendment in action. Not one judge exited or entered 45 Monroe Place during our demonstration, unless they went out a back door, unless they have a tunnel through to Clinton Street. Glendora was injured. Her rights were violated by Walsh, Alpucci, and Larkin hoodlums. She went to the courts in good faith based on what they taught her in school. And what did she find? Justice? No. Hacks. Corruption. Self-serving. Judges. Politically connected. Led around by the nose by greedy, grubby, uneducated, lying lawyers. She found justice thrown to the winds. Rewrite the textbooks and tell the kids coming up how it really is. This crookedness and selling of soul have taken our lives. Our outrage and frustration with you have consumed our time, money, peace, faith in the courts. Our resources, sources, all, hello, Ginny, so that you can get another appointment. Your violation of our rights, due process, and equal protection under the law have eroded our 40-year marriage. The courts are worse to be feared than flesh-eating bacteria. You're lying down on the job, Ginny. Here, you want to say hello to the people? Okay, Ginny. Here you are. Ginny, what color is your fur going to turn when you're old? Because it's already gray. You love the 600-watt light, don't you, Ginny? There is nothing you can be proud of here. The money the state pays you and you bring home is tainted. Tainted money sends judges' kids to college. We know what, or rather how, you are rationalizing. Quote, I didn't do anything worse than all the other judges. I'm no worse than all the other judges. This is dated White Plains. We'll date it today, May the 12th, 1995. Yours in truth, Glendora. And to all of those people that we usually send it to, Judge Trafficante, Judge Ingracia, Judge Malonis, Judge Judith Kay, the Chief Judge, Gary Casella, the Do-Nothing, and the Do-Nothing Commission on Judicial Conduct, Gerald Stern. All of those should be abolished. And these judges should be impeached. Gelman, refusal to return Glendora's property, and refusal to own up to it, and refusal to make good for it. But first of all, we want to tell you some jokes. Camping party was hopelessly lost in the northern woods of Maine, and they wandered around and wandered around and wandered around until finally one of them got up enough courage to say to the guide, I thought you said you were the best guide in the state of Maine. And the guide said, well, I am. But right now, I think we're in Canada. Knock, knock. Who's there? Fortification. Fortification who? Fortification this year, we go to the mountains. Peter says that vacations are no problem to him. His boss tells him when he's going, and his wife tells him where he's going. About Michael Gelman, I think I spent something like 8 hours going to Manhattan to see the appellate term. I had to wait for Judge Bryant. It was Monday, and May 8th, and that was the return date. And I had to wait for Judge Bryant to see if I was supposed to be there or not be there. And so I got to Manhattan late, and apparently the appellate term didn't have a very long calendar. And so I got there, and the courtroom door was locked. So I went around to the clerk's office, and Mr. Ashdown and Mr. McKinley were very helpful and told me the general procedure. I have to wait until the minutes come that I pay $400 for. I'm suing for $380. The judge was wrong. I have to appeal it. And the minutes are demanded. They won't take the appeal unless you provide the minutes. And those cost me $400. Plus all the other stuff that I paid out to bring Michael Gelman to justice. Michael Gelman is the producer of Live with Regis. I haven't had time to do the work as it should be done because you have so many flying lawyers' papers to refute every day. I went downstairs to the appeals clerk, and the appeals clerk gave me this form, transcript. So I was in the middle of telling you the minutes come, and then the 730 and a half hours I spent on Michael Gelman's lack of ethics to return my property. It's $516.91 that I've spent on this. Just because Michael Gelman doesn't have the conscience and the ethics and the upbringing to return somebody's property. $517 spent on it, 730 hours spent on it, $14 and $15 came in as witness fees. So here's the notice of settlement transcript. I get the minutes, and then I send a copy of the minutes to the defendant along with a paper that says, is there anything here you want to correct or change in these minutes? And I have to do the same. And then when the clerk of the civil court, City Court of Manhattan, gets a copy of the minutes and the settlement of the minutes, then they send the whole file over to the appellate term, which is in the New York State County of New York courthouse at Center Street, 60 Center Street. And then I have 60 days to write and submit my appellant's brief, and I believe Gelman has 30 days to do the same. So, this is the calendar. Our calendar, no wonder I missed it. Too bad. Now I have to go to the June one, I hope. Hope we don't miss that one. When is the June one? This is the appellate term, 1995 calendar. The next court day is Monday, June 5th. I hope I make that. Because I haven't seen them since way back in Monday. Was it February or March that I got them there for the first time. To go, folks, you keep a log of what happens, and you have everything all neat and tidy when I come to pay through it. Then it comes out to you in the orderly form. But we've been set so far behind, and they say when they have to answer Ryan Lawyer's legal case. That was Mendy, that would take about 70 hours, and then Kalagi took about 20 hours. And then there's the week of annual meetings, Texaco Tuesday, CBS Wednesday, going to the appellate term Monday, and you have to stay in. Go out, you have to stay in and get the work done. So when I come before the meeting to report it to you, it should be all orderly, neat, and smooth, and it isn't, but we will have free jokes. And that's the time of the year that they close the roads and open the detours. And David said that the resort they stayed at last year was so dull that the tide went out and never came back in again. And vacations are great. People get up at 4 a.m. and drive 100 miles looking for a sign that says home cooking. About the Texaco annual meeting, May the 9th, Tuesday, at 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. You saw the rainforest demonstration. You read about it on the news, in the newspaper. We had it here on the chat with Glendora 2-3 programs back. Here is another demonstration against Texaco. This one is elegantly done. to the shareholders, directors, and executives about Ecuador, bailing out of Burma. This is about Texaco's activities in light touch logs in Punta. Here's a very expensive brochure. 4 years of struggle against Texaco's dark legacy in the Ecuadorian Amazon. Citizens from 2 continents call on Texaco shareholders. More of Texaco's slick stuff. Ecuadorian Indians suing Texaco. Annual meeting of shareholders, and this is our information that was on our seat. Here is the proxy statement. Here is my speech. And here's my proxy vote. And it was returned to me, so to be on the safe side, I voted at the meeting on another proxy. Texaco is doing very well, I think, on returns to shareholders. I will play you my speech before the people. There must have been 3,000 people there. I was annoyed by the Rye Brook police. I pulled up the Lincoln on Texaco property. I saw the rainforest demonstrators. I said to a policeman, I want to videotape that. It will only take me 3 minutes. Where can I park my car? The policeman said you can park it right over there. And so I went and I parked my car over there, and then another policeman came, arrogant and abrasive, and said you can't park your car there. I'd just been told that I could. So I had to take the car all the way up and park it, and then I had to walk all the way back. And that was the videotape that you saw, and those were the policemen that you saw. That's the first step on police brutality that you see and hear about so much, all too much. Now I think the thing to do, we had coffee, just coffee, and it was given to us in white plastic mugs with the Texaco logo, and they told us to keep the mugs, and I told them I could use a new mug. And I sat down, and while I waited, I tried to find Carl Davidson, but I couldn't. Well, no wonder. He was getting ready to go on the dais. There were only 3 people on the dais, the vice chairman and Alfred DeCrane, who's the CEO and chairman, and Carl Davidson. And so while I was waiting, I read my CPLR, and I was up to Article 32, and I really kept after this reading of the CPLR that was behind from January the 5th to May the 9th, and I was trying to make up the things that I should read it 10 minutes every day, and so I was trying to make up for every day. And my goodness, by Tuesday at 8:30 p.m., just before Chat with Glendora went on TCI, I had finished it. I'd made them all up. The reading, the study of the CPLR, which is the Civil Practice Laws and Rules, State of New York statutes. So now I'm going to go get the audio tape and cue it up and play it for you of my speech at the Texaco annual meeting. Oh, one other thing is that the security, you just go through stuff. They even go through your briefcase. They didn't have a metal detector. And then when I showed him my admission ticket, he asked for identification. And I didn't want to bring my purse. I had locked it up in the trunk of the Lincoln, and it was a far way, and I protested that I didn't want to go down there and get it. And he said, well, I said, I'll show you my stock certificate. So I took out this and showed him the stock certificate, which is in here. And I guess it took so long to get it and find it. But I did show it to him. I didn't open it up. Here it is. For you, I'll open it up. And so he finally says, okay, go on in. And as I passed at the Rydtown Hilton, it was at the bottom of the stairs going into that great big ballroom, where I had interviewed Arthur Ashe. And this was only a couple of months before he died of AIDS that he got from a hospital. Outrageous. Terrible. And Arthur Ashe's wife was there, and Arthur Ashe did look very thin, very gaunt. But he was there helping the homeless. It was a benefit for the homeless, and he was there helping, raising funds. That was nice. Okay, I'll go get you the audio tape. Many shareholders were there who spoke against, they had 6 shareholder proposals, and a lot of them were sisters, religious orders. They were against, they were for more equal opportunity employment. They were for caps on executive salaries, for the board of directors, the directors being elected for just 1 year instead of 3 years. And there were many environmental protests, and there was a serious protest about Indonesia and human rights and Texaco doing business there.
Glendora TBS, Glendora Happy Book, Glendora Cheerful Look at Life, and a chat with Glendora on 11 cable systems in Manhattan, Nassau, Suffolk, Rockland, and Westchester, and I am a shareholder. And here is today's joke. The Texaco rule for public speaking: if you don't strike oil in 2 minutes, stop drilling. Mr. DeCrane, would you please sponsor Glendora Cheerful Look at Life on the NBC television network every Monday night in hard time for a year? The cost is $14 million. Glendora tells 3 jokes, and at the end she says, these 30 seconds of goodwill and good cheer has been brought to you by Xerox. They sponsored it, as did Quaker Oats, General Foods, Polaroid, and you yourself, and Texaco in 1989. You would endear 20 million people to Texaco 52 times, and that equals 1 billion impressions of respect and favor for Texaco. I ask you again, will you? And this is pertinent to the nice lady's comment about the opera. Number 2, Mr. DeCrane, in...
DeCrane says, I'll send you a bill for it.
No, the joke was free, and pardon my back, but it's better than my front. Mr. DeCrane, in 1989, the former CEO of Maycom, Thomas Burke, was a guest on a chat with Glendora, just as you were a guest in 1988, and told children how you, an ex-Marine, got started in business management. Now, Glendora asked Mr. Burke if he wanted a VHS copy of his TV interview for $120. Mr. Burke said yes. This is on audio tape. Glendora did her work on the basis of his oral order and made the VHS copy. When she called Mr. Maycom to collect her money, nobody would pay, and Glendora called Mr. Burke at his home, where she had contacted him originally, where he did the telephone interview, and where she called to tell him when he would be on TV, and they would not pay. Now then, Dr. Thomas Aquinas Vanderslice, on your board of directors, became CEO of Maycom, and Glendora asked him nicely to pay Maycom's bill for Thomas Burke, and Dr. Vanderslice did not, And Glendora has made written demands and 12 oral demands per year for 5 years for Dr. Vanderslice to have the $120 plus 9% statutory interest paid. And Dr. Vanderslice just hangs up on, in a most un-Thomas Aquinas way. And the latest on that, Mr. DeCrane, was this morning. I called him in his room 505 and made another oral demand, and he hung up again. His secretary has been very rude to Glendora and Franklin, and Glendora pleads that the Texaco board urge Ms. Dr. Vanderslice to absolve the debt of $120 plus interest, so the state on Maycorn's word, Glendora did her work and should get paid in its un-American notice. No, he should be right there. And I believe you bought a VHS, Mr. DeCrane, and honorably, like an ex-Marine of the United States of America, you paid for it. And I would like to mention parenthetically that yes, he is victory in Europe, and Mr. DeCrane, we appreciate the fact that you offered your life for your country. Now, about your annual report cover, I wish to commend you and your people for this beautiful annual report cover. It was so pretty, I showed it on TV. Now, no charge. Now, this is probably one of the better parts of the day. And this is
Better parts of the day.
Cannot make money on public access. Now, yesterday, Mr. DeCrane, I was in the bankruptcy court of the United States Bankruptcy Court of the Southern District of New York, and I watched, as a court monitor, I watched people bringing back the bankruptcy and asking to file new proofs of claim. I watched the whole procedure yesterday afternoon, and it was going to be adjourned until today, but it has not been. And I think they finished last night. Carl Davidson, this is Glendora, returning your call of 1 month ago. Let's see. Mr. DeCrane, don't you think you should have TV cameras at the annual meeting the way Gannett does? I went to the annual meeting of Gannett in Washington, D.C. a week ago. And I would like to go see the stock certificate book, and I don't see it anywhere, Mr. DeCrane. Isn't it supposed to be on exhibit at annual meetings?
The stock certificate book?
Yes, isn't that supposed to be on exhibit at annual meetings?
Shareholders.
Okay. Okay, and this is...
About 10 days before.
But not, isn't it supposed to be displayed at the meeting? Okay. The last thing is for Thomas Murphy. Michael Bellman, who's the producer of Live with Regis, destroyed or lost and failed to return to mine worth $380. I took him to court. I was shafted, and so now I'm appealing it, and the minutes cost me $400. So, Mr. DeCrane, I wish to commend you on your stamina, the way you stand up and take these things so well. It was probably easier to be in the Marines, right? And lastly, Mr. DeCrane, could we have Danish at the annual meeting? The way to a light supper.
He said a light supper.
The way GTE does, and of course CBS does, their annual meeting is tomorrow. And I'm leaving now, and you've done a great job on your weight. You look as good as when I interviewed you in 1988. I say God bless you, Mr. DeCrane, and everybody else in this room. Amen.
Okay, that was a Texaco annual meeting on May the 9th, 1995. I spoke around 12:10 p.m. as I told you. All right, now we move on to the CBS annual meeting, which was May the 10th, 1995 at 11 a.m. It was over at 12:10 p.m. It was held in the Museum of Modern Art, which is on 53rd Street between 5th and 6th, so that Mr. Tisch can walk to the meeting from the CBS building and walk home again. There must have been 3,000 people at the Texaco annual meeting, but at the CBS annual meeting there were only about 200, 250, if that. On the dais was no Howard Stringer. My defendant is out. A second defendant is out, Beth Bresson. So that's 2 down and 5 to go. On the dais was, as ever, Mr. Keenan, I believe his name is Keegan. Anyway, he's their financial boy. And always Caden, Mrs. Caden, who is from the legal department, and Mr. Tisch, that's all. Mr. Tisch, I don't think he feels well, or he's terribly bothered by something, but he wasn't the bubbling, charming, appealing Mr. Tisch that I've seen at annual meetings twice before. They had 6 shareholder proposals about board of directors being 1 year instead of 3, about executive compensation being limited to $1 million a year. These people are getting like $8 million a year with their salary and their bonuses and their options. And Henry Kissinger was there. Even though he doesn't talk loudly, he has such a booming voice you can hear it all over the auditorium. Lawrence Tisch's brother was there, Robert Preston Tisch, who was the Postmaster General, who lives right here in Harrison. Mr. Tisch lives in Rye, on Mansuring Road. Evelyn Y. Davis wasn't there, that's why the meeting was over in an hour and 10 minutes. Accuracy in Media was agitated and irritated and spoke rather sharply to Mr. Tisch. Oh, we did have Danish. You got to give CBS credit. They really have a nice spread of food for the shareholders. Bagels and muffins and orange juice and grapefruit juice and coffee. And when I came in, a guard at the Museum of Modern Arts, this is down on the, way down in the basement. You go way down 3 floors. It's way, way down in the earth. And he said that I'd have to check my umbrella, and I says, no, this is a CBS umbrella, and if I checked it, I would never see it again. I've had 4 CBS umbrellas. I'll get up the energy in a minute to show one to you. I've had 4 of them. 2 of them have been stolen, and I just have the 2 left. I have to have 2 umbrellas, 1 for each head. And so I went down on the train, and all the way down on the train, I wrote my refutation of Robert Kalaji's reply affidavit to dismiss my complaint against the Cablevision lawbreakers. And while I sat and waited at the annual meeting, I wrote a lot on it too. So I was telling you about the umbrella. So I took a seat and waited, and the security man kept his eye on me. And then I saw somebody over to the right with a CBS uniform on, and I said, CBS, come over, would you please? And I explained about the umbrella, and the CBS person took it right away and said, I'll take care of it for you. And so that way I could go down to the desk and they didn't send us any admission tickets this year. So I just went down and simply showed them my stock certificate, which split 5 to 1. 5 to 1. And so I got in, and then I asked them, and I told them about the CBS umbrella, and they said yes, they would take care of it. Well, I went way back upstairs again to have my Danish. Mr. Tisch is quite short, and he's very slim. He has a good voice, and his presentations are excellent, although, as I say, this time I just got the feeling he didn't feel good. So he conducted the meeting the business portion, and the only two things was to approve the directors and to nominated and to approve the accountants. It's routine. And I spoke. And I guess I'll have to get you my CBS speech. This is a Glendora speech at the CBS annual meeting, May 10th, 1995, at approximately 11:30 a.m. My name is Glendora, Glendora TV Ads, Glendora Happy Book, Glendora Cheerful Look at Life, and a Chat with Glendora, and I am a shareholder. And here is today's joke. A man came out of a pet store with a little Cocker Spaniel in his arms, and he encountered a friend, and he said to his friend, "What do you think of this Cocker Spaniel I got for my wife?" And his friend said, "That's not a bad trade." And Mr. Tisch laughed at that, and then he said, "This is important at the annual meeting." I said, "No, that's coming." In December 1993, Glendora bought 10 spots on the CBS TV network. The spots were on Family Feud for 2 weeks and were broadcast perfectly. Glendora paid CBS $25,000 cash up front for these 10 spots. It was a good piece of business for us shareholders. CBS TV beat NBC TV network slightly in the number of people reached and by $2,000 in the price. ABC TV, Glendora has found after 43 years of TV commercials, has always been overpriced and the value isn't there. So CBS beat them both out. In May 1994, 6 months later, Glendora decided to put her spots on network broadcast TV again. She called NBC TV to get the prices and the number of people to plus. Glendora was prepared to spend another $30,000 on airtime. Glendora also called CBS, Matt Steinfeld, her account executive, and Martin Daly, a sales manager. She got the runaround. Then she got a nasty telephone call from Beth Bresson, rude, arrogant, abrasive, and infuriating. Glendora recorded this call. Beth Bresson from the CBS broadcast group, assistant to Howard Stringer, said CBS TV would not clear Glendora's commercial, and that was ridiculous. Glendora had not submitted a commercial to be cleared. It had not been produced. Bresson said the previous commercial had not been up to broadcast standard. If the commercial were not up to broadcast standard, the question is, folks, how come CBS broadcast it 10 times? Bresson was abrasive, insulting, and unqualified for her high office. Glendora complained to Howard Stringer, Bresson's boss, through his secretaries, but Mr. Stringer never called Glendora. Nobody would take Glendora's calls. Nobody would put anything in writing. Finally, in the last week of Lent, Glendora decided to sue Bresson, Stringer, Peter Lund, Joseph Abruzzese, Matthew Margot, Martin Daly, and Matt Steinfeld. Judge Rosado did not do his job. State law says the judge has 60 days to make a decision. Judge Rosado never got his decision order in until several weeks after the deadline. He did not rule on the merits. He did not read the papers. He ruled, as do all the judges in Westchester Supreme Court, according to what the political bosses says. Glendora appealed Judge Rosado's decision to the Appellate Division, 2nd Department, New York State Supreme Court. In their hopeless and questionable way, they ignored entirely that Judge Rosado had broken a state law. They let the defendants go. Right there, Mr. Tisch interrupted me and said it didn't have anything to do with it. And you other shareholders, is it smart for CBS to throw away $30,000 and give it to NBC TV and to generate all these bad reports on TV? So it has a lot to do with the shareholders. That is bad management, and the shareholders should know about it, and such bad management should be stopped. I neglected to tell you that who sat in Mr. Stringer's chair? Peter Lund, one of the defendants. Short and thin. He's about 5'9", and he has white hair, and he has a good-looking face. But when you look into the face, you know what he's really like. Should have been written, should have been typed, should have been printed, and should have been submitted to the New York State Court of Appeals, but there was no time to do it. Maybe I can read you this is the dumbest letter by the CBS lawyer. Listen to this, if this doesn't sound like a 6-year-old. And he's writing to the New York State Court of Appeals, the highest court in the state of New York. In response to the notice of motion and affidavit by plaintiff appellate in support of her motion for leave to appeal, in the above reference action, look at this. Copies of these papers are enclosed. I have enclosed a copy of the brief filed on behalf of CBS Incorporated and the other named defendants in the Appellate Division, 2nd Department. It is my understanding that no further action need be taken by CBS at the present time. Great. If this is not the case, please call me at 212-975-3031. Thank you, very truly yours, Douglas P. Jacobs. Signed by HDA. So let me try to find my answer here, sketched out in longhand. Glendora has the following to say about CBS TV Jacobs' letter and enclosures dated May the 2nd, 1995. 1, he had his chance to oppose Glendora's motion for leave to appeal, and he did not. So Glendora wins. He should have known Glendora already sent the Court of Appeals a copy of his respondent's brief. He certainly should have known that Glendora sent her notice of motion and affidavit in support of her motion to the New York State Court of Appeals. There was no need to send that before to the court, nor to Glendora. And his last sentence of his 1-paragraph letter is puero. I think that's about it. So maybe we'll add some more to that. That other people aren't going to take that stuff. They're going to stand up and fight for their rights. They're going to end up in court, and they're going to end up being fired. And they're going to end up with their bad reports on television. They're going to be exposed. Just go back to the 10 Commandments and the Beatitudes. And do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But always remember that somebody is going to fight evil. Fifth Avenue, in the rain, I cut off at 52nd Street and stopped in at the Museum of Television and Radio. Oh, you got to go there. You see all these old shows on television. It's really great. And they have consoles. It's a beautiful building, and it's a new building. They built it themselves. Well, I mean, it's not a building that they rented. It's a building they had constructed. And not too long ago, a year and a half or two. And I saw the curator of television, Ron Simon, whom I've known for 5 or 6 years. And I just dropped in to see him. He wasn't in, so I left him a note, and I invited him to go to the CBS annual meeting because I'm allowed to take one person. So I went on, and then on the way back from the annual meeting, I cut across again. Oh, I have to tell you how the way Mr. Tisch left the annual meeting, his feet were going just like that. He may not feel well before he was going very, very fast. West on 53rd Street, across the street, and into Black Rock, 52nd Street, and 51 West 52nd Street. And he was going just as fast as he could. You want to know why? There was a TV camera following him and a reporter. I have to tell you, too, that again this year, Mr. Tisch had the meeting videotaped, and he will provide a VHS of that videotape to any shareholder who requests it. Last year, I played it on TV. Should I do that this year? Maybe. Let me write that on my to-do sheet. I can't find my to-do sheet. So I went back to the Museum of Television, and Ron was there. And I told him all about the CBS annual meeting and what had happened. I played him some of the Texaco speech. He thought that was pretty funny. And he wanted to show me their current exhibit. And it's a gallery of court TV, of television court reporting, of courts and what happens in courts as shown on TV. And he went back to these drawings before cameras were allowed in the courtroom. And And they still aren't allowed in some courtrooms. In Judge Ingracia's courtrooms, that should be stopped. And in civil court in Manhattan, that should be stopped. Cameras should be there all the time. And he showed me the drawings of the Gotti trial and of the Gene Harris trial. And playing on the monitor was the Mendes, what was it, brothers in Los Angeles, who were charged with murdering their parents. Okay, now I'll go get the CBS umbrella and show it to you. Comes with a shoulder strap. That's kind of nice, isn't it? Now, I neglected to tell you that when I stood up, when I was called on by Mr. Tisch, I stood up and I said to the people, I want you to see my CBS umbrella. And they were titillated. And I couldn't open it up at the time, so I showed about this much of it. And the people laughed, and Mr. Tisch said, wait a minute. And he says, all I see is BS. So let's see if we can open this. It's a really nice sports umbrella. You have to hold on to it tightly when you go up the street, because somebody could come up from behind you very quickly and take it. People, jokes, the people who were serving the, in their little tuxedos, who were serving the coffee, and also I told quite a few jokes to the people at the admission table that was. One of them was the sign in the restaurant window said blended coffee, and the customer said, what is it a blend of? And the waitress said, yesterday's and today's. And then a man and his wife were sitting having breakfast, and the wife said, this donut is so strong it could walk over and say hello to the coffee. And the husband says, yeah, but the coffee is so weak it couldn't answer. And then another one was a sign in a restaurant window, hello Katie. A sign in the restaurant window that said, don't make fun of our coffee. Someday you will be old and weak too. So I think I pretty much have covered the CBS annual meeting for the year 1995. And Katie is covered with rain, having just come in the house. Get under the 600-watt light, Katie. There. Okay. You look very good on Katie when you have the right end pointed toward the camera. Here, a man who protested at the Appellate Division rally. He says, enclosed are some of the papers that I have promised to send you from District Court to Second Court of Appeals. He must mean the Appellate Division, Second Department. No, he doesn't mean that. From District Court, no, I'm sorry. He means the United States Court of Appeals, Second Circuit, to the United States Supreme Court. I was contesting that is shown above. This copy of the writ might be wrong because of the something, but the right copy that I sent the United States Supreme Court. The only reason why the courts cannot be accountable, even if the judges, lose control of the courts. The Supreme Court of the United States sets a double standard by recognizing by rejecting my something for this, the courts, in my opinion, are hostile to me. That is, you want Miss Glendora, I can meet you anytime and any place to bring you contracts, courts, clerical error, lawyer lying, boy oh boy is he right about that, testimony where something, and show the personal property of debtor was distributed. Thank you for taking time to read this letter. Thank you, Albert Landsberg, 5015th Avenue, I guess. It couldn't be. Apartment 6B, Brooklyn, New York. Here is his writ of certiorari, or his petition for writ of certiorari to the United States Supreme Court. And they paid no attention to him. You know, it's all spit out by a copy machine. Pro se plaintiff Albert Landsberg moves for reconsideration pursuant to Federal Rules Civil Procedure 60B of this court's order dismissing the complaint. On October 7, 1990, plaintiff entered into a tour contract with Latour Limited. He claims that Latour's agent, Michael Steinberger, breached the contract by not faxing the amount of $805, that's a considerable sum, to Santiago, Chile. To recover his loss, plaintiff brought this action against the bankruptcy court, alleging that in the Chapter 11 bankruptcy proceeding filed by Latour, the court was lax in its responsibility to see all contracts were to be dutifully enforced. With plaintiff's consent of a pretrial conference on August 5, 1992, this court dismissed the complaint without prejudice to whatever rights plaintiff may have against Latour. Now that's terrible. In support of this motion for reconsideration, plaintiff asserts that in many bankruptcy proceedings under Section 11 of the Bankruptcy Court, referees or trustees are appointed to oversee the business operations of the debtor. Plaintiff contends that because a trustee was not appointed in the Latour action, the Bankruptcy Court denied him equal protection. Oh, that's terrible. These horror stories. The Bankruptcy Court, EO nominee, is absolutely immune from suit under the doctrine of sovereign immunity. Judge is immune from damage liability for his actions. A judge will not be deprived of immunity because the action he took was an error, was done maliciously, or was in excess of his authority. Crooked, crooked, crooked. Because, one more thing, clerk of the court has absolutely quasi-judicial immunity because challenged activities were an integral part of the judicial process. Well, this is all lies because, as you remember, I sued 2 judges in the bankruptcy court, and the court judges in the United States District Court and the United States Court of Appeals Second Circuit stood up for the 2 judges who had broken the law. You don't get justice, you don't get equal protection of the law. Because plaintiff's action against the bankruptcy court cannot succeed, plaintiff's motion for reconsideration is denied, so ordered. Only a judicial review by a panel or jury to decide a clear absence of all jurisdiction. Here it is a question of discretion and risk, consequences. Something results, a crime has been committed. No question about it, Albert. From a lonely prison cell, an inmate wins an important victory for civil liberties. New York Times Law, Friday, March the 6th, 1992. Here, let me show that to you. It's from the New York Times. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Landsberg. You didn't get justice. I have been down the same road. I don't know why we pay these courts and these judges all this money and give them showers in their new courtrooms, their new chambers. I don't know why we do that, folks, when they can't do their job and be honest and give us justice, and why the crook always has to win and why the courts always have to be on the side of the crook. I'm sorry, Mr. Landsberg. Story to read to you about Nana. What they did to her was medieval. However, in copying Nana's protest complaint, it was on a funny kind of paper, and when it went through the copying machine, it all turned black. So one page is missing, and I've got to get a hold of Nana. I think she's homeless, but she has a post office box address, and I will get a hold of that, and I'll read you her complaint, but I don't want to read it to you now with page 4 missing. On the New York telephone, if you buy a Conopath, you're supposed to get a reduction in your calls to Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, and so forth, and it's been saving about $3 a month, but last month it cost me $3. So they dropped it down to a lower, I think it's $18, if you have $18 worth of calls, and it was $23, so they've dropped it down. I finished reading the Doris Sassower suit against the New York State Commission on Judicial Conduct. Gerald Stern, she has had the same experience with them as I have. They don't do anything. I guess that's all to tell you. Sunday was communion, and I fell on a sidewalk in White Plains on East Post Road at Brookhaven. It's right around the corner from Lexington. Now this sidewalk, one block of it was here, and the next block of it was up here, and everybody's going to trip on that. So this White Plains Building, Streets, and Engineering had better get after that. I'm looking through the notes that I keep for you, and I think we've covered everything. It cost $8.50 to go to Manhattan on the train, but when I went Wednesday, I really got ripped off. It cost $8 to go down because I had to buy the ticket on the train, and then it cost $4.50 to come back, and I didn't have a card because I can't carry my pocketbook. It's too heavy, and so I didn't have any ID card, and they can't even look at me and tell me that I'm a senior citizen, so they charged me an extra $1.50. I don't think the N2 ticket agents did that in Grand Central. I don't think that's really very intelligent. Here's one of my favorite Franco drawings, his computer drawing. I like this one, the perspective that he gets on the stairs, and Katie she likes it too. You want to see it again, Katie? Well, I don't think you should chew it. Bennett called me up from South Salem. He watches the program on United Video up there. South Salem, North Salem, Cross River, Golden's Bridge, and he wanted to speak his piece on the Second Amendment, which I believe is the right to bear arms, or is it the Fourth Amendment? And so I listened to him, and he complimented me on the program, and he asked for a happy book, and I sent him a happy book. I am opposed to his viewpoint. I think guns should be done away with. Time to close the chat with Glendora for 5/4 week to today, 5/12 Friday, and Katie's going to sing you the closing hymn, God be with you till we meet again. love's banner floating o'er you, put his loving arms around you. God be with you till we meet again.
It's 1:30 p.m. It's May 13th, 1995, Saturday. The camera's focusing on the screen. Truck that Vito put on the tree belt. He took it up from over here, and I also would like to have you see the new shrubberies and wheat for the poor pine tree that was overladen with wet snow February 4th and fell over. This is Vito's truck over here. And I think we'll go over and get the license plate. Number one, the city doesn't pick up tree trunks. And number two, the city picks up everything from 21 Greenwich over on Rutherford, not on Greenwich. NZ2198. Now I'll go get you a picture of Vito. And then I can go back to my lobby. And it's beautiful, thank you, God. At 9:13 a.m. on May the 16th, 1995, Tuesday. There's a white balance. Something's still leaking. There's water all over the floor. Look how deep this is. And here's a bicycle that doesn't belong here. And here's the window that's been broken for a long time and been notified 5 or 6 times. It's 21 Greenridge Avenue, owned by John Porzio. And here are the beautiful washing machines and the beautiful digital dryer. I swept this water up twice. p.m. Roberta Walsh just drove up in this red truck. It's May the 16th, 1995, Tuesday, and she blasted the horn twice. And that's James Walsh, her son.
Hey there everybody, how are you today? Just miserable, right? This is Glendora, a chat with Glendora. Glendora TV ads, Glendora Happy Book, and Glendora Cheerful Look at Life. And here are the jokes for program 1765 at the top. The auctioneer said, "Sold," to the woman with her husband's hand over her mouth. And the native to a tourist in Hawaii, the tourist says, "How do you pronounce it? Hawaii or Hawaii?" And the tourist said, and the native rather said, "Hawaii." And the tourist says, "Thank you." And the native said, "You're welcome." And did you know that the first time that it snowed in Atlanta, the natives thought it was an explosion of grits? Now we will report to you what has happened on Scott Lord the week of May the 11th to May 18th today. The federal case in Scott Lord is over. The courts did not do their job. The courts acted crookedly, and so Scott Lord continues to act crookedly. So that case is over. But in the state court, the appellate division, I appealed the decision to the New York State Court of Appeals, the last and the highest court in the state of New York. And this is on the Fredman decision, which was crooked and inept and incompetent. And so this is the notice of motion. State of New York Court of Appeals, Glendora, plaintiff appellant against Conrad Duberstein, Robert John Hall. These are both judges in the Federal Bankruptcy Court in the Eastern District, Brooklyn and Suffolk and Nassau. Andrew Maloney, former United States Attorney. Harold Jones, former United States Trustee. Neil Mann, former United States Assistant Trustee. Teresa Kavanaugh, United States Assistant Trustee. Richard O'Connell, the panel trustee. Joseph Derby, who acts as a security employee at the Westbury Bankruptcy Court. Scott Lord, who started all this with his lying, stealing, and cheating, and the two people he committed fraudulent conveyances with, Jan Stahl and Jeffrey Burns, as defendants respondents. To the appellate division, from the appellate division, number 93-08577, to the Court of Appeals, notice of motion. Please take notice that upon the attached affidavit of Glendora, sworn to May 15, 1995, and upon all prior proceedings had in here, Appellant Glendora will move this court at Court of Appeals Hall, 20 Eagle Street, Albany, New York, 12207 on May the 30th, 1995 at 10 a.m. or as soon thereafter as plaintiff appellant can be heard, for an order granting Glendora leave to appeal the decision order of May the 1st, 1995 by the New York Supreme Court Appellate Division, 2nd Department. Yours in truth, Glendora. To Lisa L. Shrewsbury, D'Amato, and Lynch, 70 Pine Street, New York, 10270. Sort of a robot law firm. Glendora, being duly sworn, deposes as this is the affidavit and says her reasons follow for moving this court to grant her leave to appeal the decision order of May 1st, 1995 by the New York Supreme Court Appellate Division, 2nd Department. Scott Lord, Jan Stahl, and Jeffrey Burns never opposed Glendora's appeal in any way. They never opposed Glendora's appellant's brief with a respondent's brief. They never opposed Glendora's reply brief, yet the Appellate Division, 2nd Department grants Glendora no relief whatsoever. The Appellate Division, 2nd Department does not grant Glendora the relief she pleaded. $4,000 damages from Scott Lord, $4,000 damages from Jan Stahl, $4,000 damages from Jeffrey Burns. The Appellate Division did not tax Scott Lord, Jan Stahl, and Jeffrey Burns for their share of the $2,000 costs and disbursements of this action. Why is it an injured person never can find justice? Never can find relief in the Appellate Division, 2nd Department, and in the New York State Supreme Court, Westchester County. It is res judicata that Glendora did not have to have the permission of the Bankruptcy Court to sue negligent trustee Richard O'Connell. Judge Schwartzberg ruled so in June 1994. Judge Cattell ruled so in June 1994 and August 1994. You mean that 4 black robes could not have written a more intelligent decision order than this? Glendora's husband, a D-Day veteran, witnessed the oral argument. Not one judge asked Glendora a question. Why? It is the pro se prejudice. Glendora is entitled to equal protection of the law. Glendora has a constitutional right to defend herself and can do it much better than a greedy lawyer. And also it cost Franklin $50 to take that morning off to go and witness that oral argument. Glendora's husband writes, it is outrageous that the Appellate Division gives no substantial reasons for affirming Judge Fredman's inept decision order, just the same old dodge about service, never coming to grips with the issues. Where do you go when a judge ignores the controlling law, violates his oath, rules in favor of the crooks, and punishes the innocent and injured? This is why on May 1st, 1995, Monday, noon to 2 p.m., 28 of us demonstrated against the Appellate Division, 2nd Department, 45 Monroe Place, Place, Brooklyn. We chanted 1, 2, 3, 4, we won't take it anymore. 5, 6, 7, 8, whom do we investigate? The judges, the bad, bad judges. We wore placards and handed out leaflets and had speeches. Glendora videotaped it for a TV program. It is on Channel 14 now. You are a monopoly. You fail us. And where else do we have to go? And the New York State Court of Appeals never hears anything. We pay all this money for you and we never get any benefits from it. These self-serving judges have no supervision. They can be as crooked as they want and bow to every political connection they want. Decisions, orders, there are not. Just follow through from the latest political phone call, lunch, or dinners. JSC does not stand for Justice Supreme Court, but for Justice so-called. JSC is licensed to be a spoiled brat. They have no conscience, no ethics, no religious standards. The paid insurance company lawyer said 30 words of no substance at all, no argument, and left. Glendora argued her heart out, and to what avail? Defendants lied. There is no such law that says Glendora has to have the permission of the bankruptcy court to sue Trustee O'Connell. Nobody could have proved that more cogently. Then the 4 hollow black robes have to lie too in their decision order. Glendora proved no permission is required by the bankruptcy court to sue. She proved it in her cross motion to deny, motion to dismiss, in her appellant's brief, in her appellant's reply brief, and in her oral argument. Yet these 4 judges are deaf, dumb, and blind. Why? Because they have already decided how they are going to rule politically. They will rule for what is best for the judges. Is this justice? No, it is stacked, rigged, premeditated, and crooked. Justice is thrown to the winds along with the phony oaths. Why don't these judges earn a clean living, honest and honorable? They pass their tainted money down to their children and grandchildren. Who wants his college education paid for by tainted money? Rewrite the textbooks. Tell the kids the way it is in the courts. No justice, no political, just political connections. It is not a law anywhere. O'Connell, Shrewsbury do not have a law anywhere, nor does Judge Fredman, nor does the appellate division. Glendora had the law. Permission of the bankruptcy court is not needed to sue a trustee. Glendora had the case law. You notice the sophomore who wrote this decision for these 4 sleeping judges even quoted the law Glendora, never quoted the law Glendora cited. They didn't rule this way because they are dumb, because they don't know the law, because they are confused. They rule this way because they are crooked. Glendora spent 500 hours and $1,100 on this case. What does the appellate division spend? 2 mechanical electronic paragraphs spit out of a computer. They do not read your papers. They do not hear your oral argument. Why? They are crooked. They will rule for what is best for them. Just how far do they think they can push this dishonesty and dishonor? They are beyond regeneration, and the Commission on Judicial Conduct bought mind, body, and soul by the crooked judges, by the political connections. Look who is on the Commission on Judicial Conduct. Judge John Thompson. One day when she was monitoring the appellate division in White Plains, Glendora heard Judge Thompson say to a lawyer who approached the dais, "Tell me the truth. You're here today because the lower court beat the H.E. blank blank out of you. What does Judge Thompson know about judicial conduct in Canon 3A? A judge should be patient, courteous, and dignified. And we pay for this rot. This case has cost us $1,100. Courts are the worst consumer ripoff there is. The Court of Appeals knows that this is the 7th unilateral decision against Glendora. 7 times $1,100 equals $7,700, and the appellate division not once has ruled justly. Glendora has 4 more cases before them. Monopoly. Where else can she go? It is pro se poison. It is hollow black robes. Presiding Justice Belletta says, "We have read your briefs. Be aware of this when you ask for oral argument times." Well, this is not so. They do not read the briefs. This is why Glendora asks for the full 15 minutes, but it doesn't do any good. They don't read, they don't listen. They give 5 new judges, and the flesh-eating corruption spreads to them. It takes the appellate division's 2nd department 2 years from the time the appeal is perfected to get it out a decision in order. The United States Court of Appeals 2nd Circuit handed 3 Glendora appeals in 1/4 of the time it takes the appellate division's 2nd department to do 1. Glendora videotaped for TV the Lincolns and Cadillacs with license plates JSC illegally parked outside 45 Monroe Place, Brooklyn. They have sold their souls. These self-serving judges keep our lives in shambles, drain our checking accounts, burden us with stress, steal our free time, ruin our sleep, make us snack grabbers instead of salubrious eaters. Like many before us, they ruin lives, fortunes, and families. We've had to give up everything good to keep up with the law-breaking of these crooks, looking for justice in Westchester Supreme Court and suffering the evils of the Appellate Division, 2nd Department. This is no way to treat senior citizens and a D-Day veteran. When Glendora told the record of Justice of the Supreme Court Matthew F. Coppola, Judge Belletta cut it short. It's the political connections. He couldn't stand by letting his buddy judge, and he had to abandon the injured Glendora seeking justice. You could not find a worse crook than Scott Lord. Nearly 100 judgments against him in the Nassau County Clerk's Office, convicted of operating without a consumer affairs license, Local Law 6, fined and on probation, and still operating without a consumer affairs license. And Fredman, Belletta, Ritter, Altman, and Goldstein let him go scot-free. Jan Stahl and Jeffrey Barnes, convicted of fraudulent conveyances, are gone without a scratch. And who takes the rap? The innocent and the injured. Isn't it a nice court system that we have? Glendora repeats, reiterates, and realleges with the same force and effect as herein set forth at length each and every statement in her complaint, her cross motion to dismiss, her appellant's brief, her appellant's reply brief, and her oral argument. And that's the oral argument which you have heard. And so that's the way it is in these rotten courts. Rotten to the core. All political connections. No justice. Adulterated and contaminated by greed. You have to do all the work and all the expense of copying the record on appeal. Just this little tiny thing, packed high with law breaking by these defendants and by the judges and by the lawyers. So you have to reproduce that, but fortunately I had an extra one down in the basement archives. And fortunately I had an extra appellant's brief. So I could send the, and then I had to make this reply brief. And I sent them my original, and I just made myself a copy. And then you have to send up the wicked Shrewsbury so-called respondent's brief. They don't have to say anything. They don't have to speak the truth. They don't have to prove that they're innocent. It's a crooked court run by crooks and for crooks. It's not run for you, the people who do right in society. It's run for the crooks. When did that go out? That went out Monday, May the 15th, 2-3 days ago. What will happen? Well, Shrewsbury will get out one of her computerized, copied motion or cross motion to deny leave to appeal. And then I'll get out my reply affidavit, and then it'll go up to the New York State Court of Appeals, and it'll sit there in Albany for 10 weeks. And that's what happened on Glendora versus Scott Lord, Conrad Duberstein, and all those other people whose names you see on the screen. His wife is going to live longer than he is going to live because she has a whole closet full of clothes she wouldn't be caught dead in. And Ed says, I always let my wife have the last word, and Bill says, you're lucky. Mine never gets to hers. And John said to his wife, you don't have a sense of humor, and she says, I have a sense of humor, and I have an official document proving that I have a sense of humor. And John says, what's that? And his wife said, our marriage license. To mail that, chalk that up against Scott Lord, and the time on this was about 8 hours on Scott Lord this week, and the Scott Lord file of law breaking is up to 6,000 pages. And when did this start? On September the 8th, 1986. It's 9 years. There's some work that had to be done on Cablevision since last Thursday that I talked to you. What is going on there? Well, May the 8th, Cablevision Collage had to have their argument in to dismiss Glendora's complaint on the basis that Glendora didn't have a private right of action to enforce 531E, no cable operator shall exercise editorial control over public use channel. All right, so that came around about Tuesday. And Tuesday we started answering it, and Wednesday we started answering it, and we stayed up until 9:30 Wednesday answering it. And then Thursday, I believe we finished it off. They just about finished us off, and we submitted it on Thursday. And that was read to you last Thursday. And then Friday and Saturday, I started reading United States Code, Title 47, Section 521 to 559, which is all about Congress mandating that there shall be public access and that it shall not be censored by cable operators. And so when I read that, I saw thousands of things that Cablevision had done to break the law. And so I got out another paper analyzing that to Judge Bryant. Now the question is about Judge Bryant. He's moving. He's moving from East Post Road to Quaropus in White Plains, the United States Federal Courthouse, the new one, which cost $33 million. And he's moving, so what that will do to the timing of the decision that he makes, this is full submission. And I read you the Perry brief, the Perry opposition, not the opposition, but the Perry brief that had to be in on April the 24th. I read you that, and then came Cablevision Collages, and then I refuted that, and then I added this other one about Title 47, United States Code 531E. A stack of legal papers that had to be answered on the table that were this high. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we did nothing but answer those, and we got rid of the pile. And now desk 3 is cleared, desk 4 is clear, and desk 5, the typewriter desk, is cleared. And they were all stacked high with these legal papers that had to be answered. It's the lawbreakers in the first place, and then it's the lying lawyers in the second place, and then it's the crooked judges in the third place. Vision mailing is 10 days behind. There's been no time to get out the copies of the Perry brief to Polinsky, Forma, and Gilman Burke. Now here came, no, that's not what I'm looking for. Cablevision lawsuit 1, Glendora versus Cablevision lawsuit 1, and federal court, United States District Court, Southern District of New York. As I say, everything is pending now on the courts moving from East Post Road over to Quaropus and Lexington Avenue. So I think what we're doing is waiting for Judge Bryant's decision. I don't know if he's going to call us in again or not. I hope he does. I hope he just doesn't do this on submission. Because that's one of the reasons that Judge Bryant is such a good judge. He has you come in, none of this submission stuff. And the other reason he's such a good judge is that he works so fast. He does his work, he never lets it pile up. Franco and I at TCI last Thursday, the 11th, we edited 5 programs. That's not our usual brilliant output. We usually get 6 done in 3 hours. And there was so much law-breaking and lying by the lawyers and corrupt courts that the videotaping didn't get done Thursday. Just those 5 programs got done. And I had to come home after editing Thursday and videotape a half hour, and then Friday morning I had to videotape another 3 programs. So that's 9 half-hour programs to cover this law-breaking, lying lawyers, and corrupt judges for the just the week of from May the 4th to May the 11th. Finish this log and get it out, nor to add up the hours and the costs. These are how long the to-do lists are, the details, the operations, and the errands. You can see they never get done. How many things were there that day? I guess there's about 80 things to get done every day, and maybe 30 of them get done a day, and that doesn't do it. Title 47, United States Code, sections 521 to 559, which include the famous 531E, and this 531E is the law that no cable operator shall exercise editorial control over public use of channel. And so Saturday I wrote and Franklin typed an addenda. Went to Judge Bryant. Now we're talking about Cablevision 1 lawsuit. Cablevision Systems Corporation is in violation of the public access channel rule. They are supposed to designate a full-time channel for public access. They don't. Public access on channel 25 is shared with religious programs. Yonkers Cablevision makes us share public access with the Playboy channel, channel 37. Yorktown Cablevision makes us share the public access channel with the Yorktown Council meetings. And Harrison Cablevision makes us share the public access channel with Port Chester government. It should be done the way TCI does it in White Plains. Channel 14 is exclusively for public access, Channel 15 is exclusively for the White Plains Common Council, and Channel 16 is exclusively for the White Plains schools. This is what the authorities attended PEG to be, and PEG stands for Public, Educational, and Governmental Access. Title 47, 521 at stakes, promote the availability to the public of a diversity of views and information through cable television and other video distribution medias. Now this is a statement of policy of the Act by Congress 47, Title United States Code 521 et sec. Ensure that cable operators continue to expand where economically justified their capacity and the programs offered over their cable systems. Well, A, instead of promoting a diversity of views and information, Cablevision defendants truncated the same, thereby violating the policy. B, instead of continuing to expand, Cablevision defendants atrophied. 5, 47 United States Code 521 states, at the same time, broadcast programming that is carried remains the most popular programming on cable systems, and a substantial portion of the benefits for which consumers pay cable systems is derived from carriage of the signals of network affiliates, independent stations, and public television stations. Also, cable programming placed on channels adjacent to the popular off-the-air signals obtains a larger audience than on other channel positions. Nassau Cablevision, Glendora, says puts public access way up to channel 25. Yonkers Cablevision puts us on channel 37. Harrison Cablevision puts us on channel 45. TCI does it right. Public access system-wide, 21 towns in Westchester is on channel 8. Between very popular Channel 7, WABC-TV, and Channel 9, WWOR-TV. Title 47 of the United States Code 521 states that the purposes are to assure that cable communications provide and are encouraged to provide the widest possible diversity of information sources and services to the public. Cablevision defendants did just the opposite, provided the narrowest possible diversity of information services. Glendora was telling the Nassau County communities, plus Islip, Babylon, and Huntington, how to protect themselves from consumer fraud and from the dysfunction of county, state, and federal agencies, for which they are taxpayers. Title 47 of the United States Code, Section 521 states, there is a substantial governmental and First Amendment interest in promoting a diversity of views provided through multiple technology media. There is a substantial governmental and First Amendment interest in ensuring that cable subscribers have access to local non-commercial educational stations, which Congress has authorized as expressed in Section 396A5 of the Communications Act of 1934. And public television provides educational informational programming to the nation's citizens, thereby advancing the government's compelling interest in educating its citizens. A primary objective and benefit of our nation's system of regulation of television broadcasting is the local origination of programming. Therefore, there is a substantial governmental interest in ensuring its continuation. So there you are, Kalaji. And in Cablevision denied that governmental interest by censoring. My program was a program and is a program of information, as much information as possible to the public. United States Code 521 also states so that's what I did. I went through that 531E law, Title 47 United States Code, and I picked out all of the things that Cablevision had violated. Glendora adds a historical, to say nothing of hysterical, note to the background of Title 47 of the United States Code 531. Cable channels for public, educational, or governmental use. Authority to establish requirements with respect to designation or use of channel capacity. Authority to require designation for public, educational, or governmental use. Back in 1970, when cable TV began, here is how public access started. The avaricious entrepreneur who had learned to put an antenna on a tower, on a high hill, and to send a signal through a coaxial cable would stand before the city council and ask permission to run his cable all over the city, poles to pole. The council would say, if we let you do this, will you give the government a channel and televise our council meetings? And the entrepreneur said yes. Will you give us a channel for our schools? Yes. Will you give us a channel for the public to put on its programs? Yes. Will you give us cameras and mics and studios and remote trucks free of charge so we can videotape our programs? Yes. And why did avaricious entrepreneurs say yes to everything? Because standing behind them were 6 or more entrepreneurs who would have said yes if a no had been given. At this time, Charles Dolan owned Manhattan Cable TV and was making a mess of it. Time Warner bought it from him, and Dolan went to Long Island. At this time, 1973, Glendora was in broadcast TV. She had been since 1953, 20 years. And she went over to cable TV to see if all the pie in the sky talk were true. She became a public access producer, then a programmer, and then worked for cable companies as a public access coordinator in charge of their public access. Then the cable TV entrepreneur became a monopolist, and it became impossible for the cities and towns. Section. Now, what's this? Rejecting maxim of statutory construction, expressio unius est exclusio ulterius, since it would undermine remedial purposes of the statute. Third, it is consistent with the underlying purposes of the legislative scheme to imply a right of action under 531E. Congress recognized in 1984 that a requirement of reasonable third-party access to cable systems will mean a wide diversity of information sources for the public, the fundamental goal of the First Amendment. Let's say that again. The fundamental goal of the First Amendment will mean is a wide diversity of information sources for the public. Public access channels in particular are often the video equivalent of the speaker's soapbox or the electronic parallel to the printed leaflet. Electronic soapboxes, that's what Congress wanted. Congress realized, however, that it was integral to the concept of the use of public access channels that such use to be free from any editorial control or supervision by the cable operator. The effectiveness, and that's what 531E is. The effectiveness of the broad prescription against cable operators' editorial control over public access channels would be undermined if there were no implied right of action under Section 531E. Now that's obvious to everybody but the Cablevision crooks and their paid-for lawyer. Carlaggi. In the footnote here. In addition, it is improbable that franchising authorities would ever choose to enforce the free speech rights of public access producers such as Glendora, whose programs are critical of local government officials. Where's the justice? The remedy under Section 531E is thus wholly inadequate, as the allegations herein reveal, as to viewers and producers of public access programs. Finally, the cause of action created here is not one traditionally relegated to state law in an area basically the concern of the states. Congress is concerned with diversity of information services and sources over the cable medium. That's 521(4), but also emphasizes its desire to establish a national policy concerning cable communications. That's a good point. So that's why it shouldn't be enforced through the state. Nation of the four factors set forth in Court versus Ash demonstrates that Congress intended to create an implied right of action under Section 531E, as every court to address the question has held. Now let's go on to point B. The 1992 reenactment of Section 531E confirms the existence of an implied right of action. Even if an implied right of action did not exist under Section 531E, as originally enacted in 1984, such implied right of action came into existence following its 1992 reenactment as part of a comprehensive re-examination and significant amendment of the Cable Act, which is, when Congress acts in a statutory context in which an implied private remedy has already been recognized by the courts, the inquiry logically is different from that undertaken when new legislation is enacted. Congress need not have intended to create a new remedy since one already existed. The question is whether Congress intended to preserve the pre-existing remedy. It is always appropriate to assume that our elected representatives, like our citizens, know the law. Hence, evaluation of congressional action in 1992 must take into account its contemporary legal context. Given the Missouri Knights had been decided and reported in 1992, it is abundantly clear that an implied cause of action under Section 531E was a part of the contemporary legal